नमस्ते बेटियों, खुश रहिए। आई JVN Muskan Kumari from the Department of Science and Technology, and I'm working here as an assistant professor in JVWU Women's University and the Faculty of Education in Methodology. So today I will discuss in this session with some little layers, which is your OSI models, and the last layer that is your application layer. So I will discuss in this session with the application layer, what are the services of the application layer, what are the various functionality of application layer, isn't it? So these all points will be covered in today's discussion. Clear? So to make it an easy way to understanding to all of you, I am just going to share the some files which will help you to better understanding these all the things. Clear? So just hold 1 minute. So file will be very here. This application. Clear? So, so application layer is in the OSI model is the closest layer to the end users through which the end user will interact all the services which is forwarded from physical layer to the transport layer. Clear? So, which means the application layer and the end user can interact directly with the software applications, and the application layer programs are based on the client and the servers. Clear? The application layer includes the following functions like identifying communication partners. The application layer identifies the availability of communication partners for an application with data to transmit. If we also discuss the determining resource availability, then we can say that like application layer determines the whether sufficient network resources are available for the request communication or not, isn't it? Now, if we talk about the synchronizing communications, then we can also say that all the applications or the communication which occurs between the application and requires the corporation which is managed by the application layer. Okay, so the identify your communication partners, determine the resource availability or not, and also synchronizing the communications, okay, which is basically managed by the application layer. Now, what are the various services which is provided by the application layer? The first service name is here Network Virtual Terminal. Network Virtual Terminal is what? The application layer that allows a user to log on to the remote host. To do so, the application creates a software emulsion of a terminal at the remote host. The user's computer talks to the software terminal, which is in turn talks to the host also. The remote host thinks that it is communicating with one of its own terminal. Okay, so it allows the user to log on. Now, if we talk about the file transfer, access, and management also, then FTAM, an application allows a user to access the files in a remote computer, to retrieve files from the computer, and also manage files in a remote computers. Clear? So, FTAM defines a hierarchical virtual file in terms of file structure, file attributes, and the kind of operations which is performed on the files and their attributes also. Clear? Now, if we talk about the addressing services, so to obtain the communication between the client and server, there is a need for addressing. When a client made a request to the server contains the server address and its own address. The server responds to the client request. The request contains the destination address and the client address. To achieve this kind of addressing is we are using the DNS. Okay. So what is the basically addressing is discussed. Okay. Now, what is the mail services? Mail services also provided by the transport application layer. Now, application layer provides mail forwarding and storage, isn't it? Now, directory services. An application also contains a distributed database that helps to provide the access for global information about the various objects and the services. Clear? Now, one more will be authentication. Authentication basically it authenticates the sender or receiver's message or code. Okay? Now, network application architecture. What are the network application architecture in the application layer? So, application architecture is different from the network architecture. The network architecture is fixed and provides a set of services to and applications. The application architecture, on the other hand, is designed by the application developers and defines how the applications should be structured during the various in system. Okay. Now there are more application architectures of two types. One, the client server architecture, isn't it? So the client server architecture, an application program which is running on the local machine, sends a request to another applications program known as the client, and a program that serves a request is known as a server. For example, when a web server receives a request from the client host, it responds to the request to the client host also. Now, characteristics of the server architecture, client server architecture. In a client server architecture, the client don't directly communicate with each other. For example, in a web applications, two browsers don't directly communicate with each other, and a server is fixed, well-known address known as the IP address, because the server is always on while the client can always contact to the server by sending a package to the sender's IP address. Now, if we talk about the disadvantages regarding the client server architecture, then it is a single server based architecture which basically incapable of holding all the requests from the client. For example, a social networking site can become overwhelmed when there is only one server exists. Now, P2P, point to point or peer to peer architecture. It has no dedicated server in a data center. The peers are computers which are not owned by service providers. Most of the peers reside in the homes, office, schools, and universities. The peer communicate with each other without passing the information through the dedicated server, and this architecture is also known as peer-to-peer architecture. The application, which is based on peer-to-peer architecture, improves the file sharing and internet telephony also. Clear? Now, if we talk about the some features of peer-to-peer architecture, then first is the self-scalability and the cost effective. Self-scalability in a file sharing system, although each peer generates a workload by requesting the file, and each peer also adds the services capacity by distributing the files to the peer. Isn't it peers or no? Cost effective in the sense like that it doesn't require significant server infrastructures and server bandwidth. Now, if we talk about the client and server process, then we can say that a network application consists of a pair of processes that sends the message to each other over a network. In peer-to-peer file sharing system, a file is transferred from process in one peer to the process in another peer. We label one of the two processes as the client and another process as the server. Okay, with the peer-to-peer file sharing, the peer which is downloading the file is known as the client, and the peer which is uploading the file is known as the server. However, if we have observed in some applications like peer-to-peer say file sharing, a process can be both as a client and server. Therefore, we can say that process can both download and upload the files also. Okay, so this is all about the applications layer, and if you have any problem regarding this session, then please let me know your query, through which I will solve your query for more informative knowledge, meaning, isn't it? And discuss that query in the next sessions. And please do you read yourself these sessions and all the topics which I have covered in today's session by using the multiple standard book like Frozen's, and also use the multiple websites through which we can easily get the documentations and valuable information regarding these sessions also clear. And many more questions will also arises from these sessions like define the application layer, what are the functions of application layer, what are the services of the applications layer, can you explain the can you explain the network application architecture, isn't it? So here I have discussed only one architecture, the client server architecture, their characteristics, disadvantage, and second is your peer-to-peer architecture. Okay, their features. Okay, so please read these sessions by yourself once again for best communication confirmations and best of gaining the informations and understanding.